listening to the Rosenfeld Review, where we're just a bunch of blind men trying to figure out that elephant together. My guest today is one of my oldest friends, I guess, who you could say is in the industry. Maybe not quite the same industry, but we go back a long time. His name is Jim Ottaviani, and Jim and I were in library school. Well, it wasn't still called library school anymore, but we were at the University of Michigan School of Information. When was it, Jim? I think I was 88 to 90, and you were like 90 to 92 or something?
Yeah, I think our overlap was about a year. And as I recall, I entered, it was still library school, but as I left, it was no longer. So there might have been some library embedded in one or both of our degrees.
Yeah, and
I don't even remember anymore, though.
It's so wild that, and things change so quickly that, I date my beginning at library school, my matriculation, with the presence of the 2400 baud couplers for the modems.
Okay.
That we used to use to do online searching. I think by the time you started, we had moved to with a fancy computer lab that had Windows 3 machines and
sounds about right.
CD-ROM, man, they were cool.
But amazing.
But
it was the future.
Now it's wow. It is 30 years later, Jim, and you've had quite a career. So Jim was the people, one of the people that we all kind of worship back in library school because he had been a nuclear engineer already in a prior life, and was
that's
clearly
that's worthy of worship.
Well, I mean, you were
Talk
just
about false idols.
You really okay, but you were very impressive, and you were already wading into this interesting area of graphic novels. So if you probably don't know Jim Ottaviani, but he is the first New York Times bestselling author I've had on the Rosenfeld Review. Unfortunately, not one of my own authors. Maybe we'll get there one of these days. But Jim is known as essentially the graphic novelist when it comes to books about scientists. So Jim started literally in his basement 25 years ago, 30 years ago, writing books about scientists. And he just stayed with it and has written books about just fascinating subjects ranging from Alan Turing to Richard Feynman to Jane Goodall. His most recent books include, these are pandemic books. He did 2 during the pandemic already, The Naturalist with E.O. Wilson and Astronauts, Women on the Final Frontier. And you were kind of self-publishing, if I recall, and now you do books with Macmillan, and you've been an Oprah selection, and you're a New York Times best-selling author, and I knew you when.
It's a weird life, isn't it? I like to say I knew you when, because you're a big-time publisher.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big-time New York publisher. Just look at me. But the truth is, we have some things in common, and I think your journey in the last 25, 30 years is really fascinating. I mean, we have those shared librarianship roots, and you're still a librarian. I'm a turncoat. I went over to the dark side and became a publisher years ago, but you still work at the University of Michigan Libraries, and you are writing these books, working with ace illustrators and letterers and colorists, and doing this amazing work that's really pushed this genre of comics. Maybe we can say it's a genre, no longer a subgenre, but an actual genre.
I think it actually is at this point. There are many more people besides me doing it now than there were when I started. And when I started, as you mentioned, it was as a self-publisher. And I had the idea to do this type of book. And I pitched it around to various comic book publishers, basically. The whole idea, this notion of a publisher like Macmillan or Simon & Schuster or Penguin Random House or whoever doing this, that was just unthinkable.
Yeah.
But even offering it to comic book folks, there were a fair number who liked the concept or the idea behind it. but I think I might have mentioned this to you in these words before. The response I typically got was, "Can't wait to read that when somebody else publishes it."
Sorry
And
to laugh, but at least it's in the rear view mirror at this point.
yeah,
Why were you
and
getting that
so
reaction?
that,
What was so like nice, but in their minds?
I don't know. I mean, it's a very different publishing landscape now than it was 20 odd years ago. Gosh,
Mhm.
it's getting close to 25, isn't
Yeah.
it? Um, and our mutual friend Scott McCloud put it pretty well. Uh, er, Not too long after I started doing these things, he pointed out that the manga revolution that was happening, or like the first wave of manga coming over to the United States and the North American publishing world, was just starting to happen. He very astutely noted that it was bringing a lot of new readers in to the form, the medium. And he used much saltier language than I'm about to use now. But he said, if we just don't screw this up, in about 10, 15 years, all these young women who are reading manga right now will be entering the publishing profession. And you'll start to see a shift in the types of books people are interested in reading and therefore publishing and therefore writing and drawing. And I think he was right.
Yeah, so that is so hitting home for me because
Yeah.
today, my daughter Iris, who is believe it or not 17, and you've known her whole life,
Yeah.
and she's like getting into colleges now. She's supposed to be working, and I poked my head in, and like almost any other time I poke my head in, she is on a tablet drawing
Uh-huh.
that essentially to me look like manga characters.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm just taking a break." But she's like, it's odd. She's always taking a break. Anytime I poke in, she's on the tablet. But and you know, it's not only that younger generation of people that are clearly influenced, and you know, like the whole. I mean, they're not
Mm-hmm.
doing comics necessarily, but just like the sort of figures that they think
Mm-hmm.
to draw are so clearly influenced by that area. And
Yeah.
you know, now you're making me think also that some of my favorite illustrations that we've had done for our own books in the last few years have been by Deb Aoki, who totally,
Oh, she's terrific.
you know, Deb.
I do.
Oh my God. I had
It's a
had no
pretty small
idea.
world.
Oh wow, that is amazing. I had
I
no
mean,
idea you knew Deb.
I don't want to claim that we're real close friends, but we've certainly run into each other multiple times in the comics convention, festival
Amazing.
type circuit.
I had
Yeah,
no
she's
idea.
terrific.
Yeah. I love her work. I love her work. And I think
Gosh, I
she's done
probably
at
still
least two
have
books for us now. I wish I could remember off the top of my head which.
not too far, over in the closet there. I'm sure I've got in one of the shoe boxes full of mini comics some of her old A Girl books. The basically photocopied zine style. Yeah, great
Wow.
work.
So, all right. So this
Anyway,
leads me to a question.
hmm
So, you mentioned Scott McCloud to whom so many owe a debt.
yes.
And he certainly was very prescient in that observation about, don't F it up in the next 10 or 15 years, and things are going to be very different.
hmm
But I remember feeling very excited by his work. Like understanding comics came out what? It's about 20 years.
A little bit longer than that. I think it's right around 1990. I want to say it's about 30 years old. We could look
Wow.
this up, obviously, but
Sure. So that would have been out. The writing was clearly on the wall. I engaged a guy named Kevin Cheng
hmm
to write a book for us called "See What I Mean,"
yep.
where he
I remember when you did this,
and I think
and
it's a
I think it's a great book.
wonderful book, and I think it came out. I'm just shooting from memory, like something like 2010 ish,
Okay.
and give or take a year or two. And he was showing the reader how to use comics to basically, among other things, do storyboarding, which in the design world is critical, but not just in the
Hmm.
design world. Anyone who is trying to communicate experience plus time.
Yes.
And I think it's a great book. I'm biased, of course, but for the most part, I love all my children. But I really thought he did a wonderful job, and it didn't like it wasn't a failure, but it certainly didn't take the design world by storm.
Yeah, it surprises me actually because I remember you talking about it before it came out. I remember getting it once it came out and thought, God, this has to be like, well, you kind of hope it's not a revelation
Hmm.
for designers, but I don't think you would have done it if you didn't think there wasn't a knowledge gap, if you will, among them for which this book would fill, for
Well,
which it would fill. That's pretty bad grammar,
well, I'm
but you
with
know what I
you.
mean.
I'm with you. And if not revelatory, it should at least be both consolidatory
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and also make it was very practical. It was like really like how to apply comics to design and
Yeah. I mean, it provides very much like Scott's book, a vocabulary. Here's a shared vocabulary. Here's a language that we can now use to talk about uh, these ideas. Where before, you might have to just continue to sketch things out and draw things. Heaven forbid. Uh,
So yeah, I mean, all right. So it makes me think of that audience,
yeah.
and we may have been a little early with that book, but I want to get back to your work and how you've seen the audience change in 25 years. Now, clearly, like from a commercial perspective, you went from not long ago talking to comic book publishers who look
Hmm.
forward to another publisher taking your work on to the point where you're not talking to comic book publishers any longer. You're talking to the Knopfs and the Macmillans and folks
Yeah.
like that. So, there's definitely like, it's viable.
But
But
are they not comic book publishers now? I guess is
ah,
I'm gonna tease and
yeah.
be sort of pedantic about it. I think all those publishers have become comic book publishers in part because it's a commercial enterprise. They saw some money there, but also the reason they saw money is they saw an audience that was interested in books about things other than people wearing skin tight clothing punching each
Hmm.
other. And that kind of folds back into the manga idea. Not manga has had what was never focused the way North American publishing was focused, comic book publishing I should say, was focused on one genre only. And even North American comic book publishing wasn't single genre until the 60s, 70s. And that's when uh, basically superheroes took over and ate every other genre's
Oh, just like in
lunch.
Hollywood now.
That's what's happening in Hollywood now, almost. Yeah. So we, given another 30 years in Hollywood, we'll come back and rediscover, romance, Western,
Let's hope.
uh,
Science
mature
fiction,
themes
please,
again.
please, like real sci-fi, but that's another story.
Yeah, real sci-fi, all those things. Um, so yeah, I think I don't know where I was going with this.
Well, just the
Uh,
change in like so publishing has changed
mhm,
clearly, but
it has.
like I the audience itself and how it relates to the genre. I'm wondering if you're seeing that as a change. Like so, I don't know if your readers 20 years ago were people who were just sort of like blown away or just sort of almost caught off guard in a really good way about interacting with content in graphic novel form that was just
Right.
so not what they were expecting in graphic novel form. Whereas
Yeah, I think
today, they may be a little more jaded about the genre. And, I don't know if you feel like you have a harder time in some respects connecting with your audience today.
oh, I don't know if that's true, but I think we can separate genre and medium. And back in the day, the people who were willing to take a chance as readers on my books were pre-sold on the medium of comics. But perhaps very much like you and me, maybe at the time, it's like, all right, I think I've read about as many Spider-Man stories as I want to read in my life, or pick your favorite character, whatever. But I still kind of like comics. That way of taking in narrative, taking in story, and maybe even just taking in pure information in a nonfiction, in the realm of nonfiction, I like it. So I'm going to start looking for books that engage my brain in that way, but are not number 787,412 of the Spider-Man saga, but instead is the first of the story about Richard Feynman in this world, a guy I've never heard of as a lifelong comics reader, but it turns out might be interesting to me.
And is it more typical that your readers are people who started with comics and then said, "Oh, comics can be, a medium for other genres or other subject areas like science," or are they people who are interested in science and maybe then move to graphic novels?
Right. So
About science.
that's where I would say I'm pretty sure there's a big shift between 20 years ago and now. 20 years ago, it was, graphic novels. Now it's just, I'm looking for stuff about scientists, or I'm looking for interesting nonfiction. I happen to like comics. Is there anything out there? This is, on librarian Twitter and various other areas, you'll see folks popping up not infrequently. I don't want to say like it's every day. It shows up in a feed where I'm in. It's like, I'm looking for books about science in graphic novel form. Are there any?
Oh.
And the answer is yes. Whereas I would say maybe 20, 30 years ago, librarians were just looking for graphic novels of any kind that they could comfortably recommend to either kids who are interested in any given topic, or to parents, and not have the parents come back, a week later saying, "This was awful. I'm embarrassed to have had this in my house. I will not vote for the library millage next year because you had comics like this in your collection."
Well, I'm, to me, like one of the big questions, of course, is, moving out of school libraries and public libraries. I'm wondering how the academic industrial complex has related to graphic novels in terms of the academic librarian and the whole, the whole world of citation analysis and so forth. But we'll save that perhaps for after the break. You're listening to the Rosenfeld Review with my guest, Jim Ottaviani. We'll be right back. I want to tell you about our next conference for a moment. It's called Design at Scale. It takes place virtually June 9th through 11th. This is a conference that used to be called Enterprise UX, and then it was called Enterprise Experience, and now it's Design at Scale. We're using that framing because we think it's actually a bit more flexible and welcoming than enterprise. And let's face it, everyone is dealing with scale problems, not just in large enterprises like the IBMs and the Facebooks of the world, but people in places that you wouldn't think of as enterprises are really dealing with these challenges of scale. What do I mean by design at scale? Well, in many cases, it's the fact that you can't get all the various people around the table any longer that are involved in the design process. Those may be sponsors and funders, they may be designers and researchers, they may be developers, they may be external agencies and partners. Either way, the process is so fragmented and so many people are involved. We've got some problems and some challenges that are hard to deal with. And then the users. Well, the users may not be the customers. You may have people using a system on behalf of customers. All these challenges of complexity and distribution are all wrapped up in the broader issue of scale. I've been working with a great curation team, Lada Gorlenko, Biruté Galdikas, Kid Unger, and we've found some fantastic speakers, both through our call for proposals. We've got something like 160 proposals to choose from. We've already started to flesh in the program. We've got speakers that you've heard of, like Peter Merholtz, Kenneth Bowles, Sherry Byrne-Haber, Cornelius Rakiuru, Billy Mandel, Surya Vanka, and lots of folks that you probably haven't heard of, but we're really good at finding the best stories from people that you might not know and getting them in a place where they can give a fantastic presentation because we put them to work really prepping and iterating and collaborating as they develop their talks over many months. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, I hope you'll join us. Design at Scale takes place once again virtually June 9th through 11th. You can learn more about it at designatscaleconf.com. Welcome back. You're listening to the Rosenfeld Review with my guest, Jim Ottaviani, the guy when it comes to graphic novels about science.
Oh, I'm gonna demur.
I know you are.
At this point,
it
it's
was a setup.
a guy.
A guy. Well, maybe the first one, but so I wanted to talk a little bit more about your work, and so much of what you've done is about scientists. I mean,
Yes.
and just this fascinating mix. Feynman is one of the most interesting people, bar none, science or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Jane Goodall. Dian Fossey.
Yes.
All these people are just incredible. And one of the magical things I think that you can do in your work, and one of your superpowers, is bringing out scientific theories in the context of their progenitors. Relativity in the context of Einstein.
Yes.
And it's one of the reasons that I like to read your books, and my kids like to read your books, and I like that my kids read your books because I know they're learning something that they wouldn't ordinarily learn. But what about, I'm kind of interested in how you choose topics in general, and are you ever going to choose a topic that is really just about a theory? Are you going to teach us string theory one of these days? Because string theory, is that, someone's baby, or is it not?
I don't think of it as having sprung from one person's head the way relativity did. And even that, relativity did have many, many precursors. Einstein wasn't operating in a vacuum.
All right.
Purely in a vacuum. But yeah, I don't think string theory is quite like that. And, just to stick with that particular subject, man, I don't know if I could ever do that. I have that stuff is beyond me. I have read a little bit about it, and it's very difficult for me to wrap my head around.
No, I don't feel so bad.
The basic ideas of relativity are not that crazy, and I think fairly amenable to a graphic presentation. And oddly enough, we're getting close to wrapping up an Einstein book right now. Probably will come out next year. And the integration of the theory to the life is particularly strong with Einstein, in part because I don't think he was ever not thinking about this in his life, even as he philandered away and et cetera, et cetera. He was not actually he was not a good husband or father.
So I hear.
But and that actually made it a little bit difficult to write about him and sympathize with him sometimes. It's like, oh man, don't, come on. um, but he actually was asked to provide a biography of himself in some fairly popular publication, and all it was the origin of relativity theory. That's how he thought of his life, was as he gets to relativity, progresses through it, and what he was doing after it. The fact that he had children, that he was married, etc., didn't seem to be relevant to him. But to your question about a pure topic, a subject, I'm actually working on a book right now about an idea, and it's basically what are the limits of human performance physically. I mean, you're a runner, I'm a runner, and I'm going to use running as like the test case or the case study for human performance. But there's of course so many other things that humans can do with their bodies and with their brains, and there's no individual to focus on for this. I had an idea about focusing on an individual, and my editors shot it down, and they had good reason to do this. And that person's still going to appear, and I'm not going to talk much more about that right now, because I'm actually pretty fond of the framing sequences that I'm going to have to use this, but I'm not sure I've got it right yet, so I don't want to say anything, jinx it. But without that the organizing principle of a human life to move through and have that person basically narrating their own story, turns out it's really difficult for me.
Well, the journey is what often carries a book forward, and
That's right.
the individual human journey is the most obvious and familiar to any other human. Obviously,
that's right. Totally relatable to people. Everybody's gone through, success and loss and unrealized potential and being thwarted by outside forces. All those classic storytelling.
Like I
tropes.
think you covered, was it Rosalind Franklin?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
It was just so touching. I mean, it was painful.
Right. Yeah, it's painful. And, this character has some painful aspects to their lives, to their life as well. So, but absent using that as the organizing force for it, it turns out I don't really know how to write this book. And so I'm learning how to do this as I go. I spent this morning and this afternoon finally printing out all my note cards. I type up my notes for ideas or facts or topics or whatever per page, just in word processing, then print them out, cut it into fourths, and then I have all these, effectively 4x6 cards. And now it's time to do the shuffling of these. But yeah, it's hard without having a beginning and a middle and an end, which most lives that I've touched on so far have had to, bring structure to it.
So here's my fiction publisher / acquisitions editor perspective for you. And
yes, please.
You need a hero. Can your reader be the hero in that one?
Yes, I think that's where this is going.
It'll be interesting. And for that really valuable piece of advice I just gave you, I'm going to expect a comp when the book comes out. In the meantime, we could go. It's
going to be a little while.
It'll be a while. I'll wait. We've been at this together. I've been a reader for 20 plus years now, so I'm happy to wait it out. We got to wrap up, but and we could go much longer. And I wish I could be in Ann Arbor, sitting in Dominic's with you right now, or some other place that's probably Dominic's isn't even there anymore. But
it is. I don't think they're open yet, though.
It will happen. It will happen. I will be there. I miss it, and I miss you guys.
Oh yeah.
But before we wrap, I have my tradition of having my guests on the podcast tell me a little bit about something or someone that they think deserves to have a little light shown on it. What you got for me?
What do I have? Well, listener, spoiler, we talked about this beforehand, so this is not completely off the top of my head.
Damn, I was trying to make it seem so natural and spontaneous, and you blew me up there. Thank you. Thanks.
I'm a
lot.
nonfiction guy.
I guess so.
I'm revealing my source notes. We thought about this. There's an organization that I've been involved with for a little over a dozen years now, and they came to Ann Arbor a few years before I got involved with them. I think they're in Brooklyn too, and they're actually all over the country. And this is the 826 folks. There's 826 Michigan, there's 826 Brooklyn, there's 826 Valencia, which is actually where it started. This is a reading.
Is that .com or .org or?
It's a .org.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a reading, writing, tutoring workspace for kids from basically K through 12. Founded by Dave Eggers out in San Francisco.
Yeah, the superhero store is the one here in Brooklyn.
Yeah, the superhero store is in Brooklyn. I think it's the pirate store in San Francisco at 826 Valencia.
Huh.
And their secret origin story is this. Eggers starts this organization to encourage creative writing and reading, and also do some tutoring, after school tutoring, because lots of kids need that out there in San Francisco at this specific address, 826 Valencia.
Mm-hmm.
A little while after it happens, and I'm totally doing broad brush of this history, but a little while after, some city official comes over and says, man, this is great what you're doing, but this place is zoned commercial, and you can't just be doing what you're doing here. And but look, kids reading, writing, it's like zoned commercial. And so they set up a pirate supply store where you could buy eye patches and plastic swords or whatever, fake parrots.
Mm-hmm.
And that is sort of carried through to all the branches around the country. As you said, the one there in Brooklyn is the superhero supply store. So I assume you can get capes and ray guns and things like that. The one here in Michigan is the robot supply and repair. So we will fix your robots. We will sell you robot-like things. Robot tiers are available, all sorts of goofy stuff. Anyway, this is a great place for kids to explore the wonders of the written word,
and the imagination.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I should kick my two kids down the street to the superhero store. It's only about a 3-minute walk. Jim Ottaviani, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to connect.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Jim Ottaviani, graphic novelist, or as they used to say, comic book writer of science.
Both work.
And also, and I'll say it again, and it just puts chills down my spine. New York Times best-selling author, and look for his next 2 books, Naturalist and Astronauts, Women on the Final Frontier. Jim, thanks again.
You're welcome, Lou. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Rosenfeld Review, brought to you by Rosenfeld Media. If you like our show, please subscribe and review it on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast platform. I'd love it if you tell a friend to have a listen, and check out our website for over 100 podcasts with other interesting people. You'll find them all at rosenfeldreview.com.